We want to talk Marvel with you. You know, I'm a big Thanos fan. And now that we've had like the years to remove ourselves, I guess, and digest the Infinity War and the Endgame of it all, I would love to hear from you as the guy who kind of really coined the first story that was all that inspired that with Infinity Gauntlet. Is there anything in the book that you think would have been particularly fun that didn't make the cut? Like Nebula holding the gauntlet, or just anything that you put in that you kind of were like, oh, it would be cool to see this, and then it didn't happen.
Warlock and the Silver Surfer. I mean, because they were so central, but you know, Warlock hadn't been introduced to the universe yet, and the Surfer was over on another company.
Yeah.
So that would have been nice to do it. You got to come in with any adaptation with the realization that what you put on the page is not going to get there. Only an idiot would think that they're going to do a page-by-page adaptation of your story. Because I'd worked on other things with a couple of novels that got adapted that never got to the screen. So I didn't come in there with any heavy expectations, though I did have a few bad moments just before the Infinity War. I had been down to the set for the cameo shoot and had sat and talked with the two screenwriters, Marcus and McFeely, and quite a bit with Joe Russos. And in the Infinity War, they had a half hour that they had to cut, which was going to be Thanos' backstory. There was going to be a half hour without the Avengers, apparently. And so, you know, I thought, well, that's pretty cool. And then I was on a plane and I watched the Justice League movie. And, you know, they just sort of throw Steppenwolf in there at the end and he does his thing. And it was, all in all, it was kind of a bad movie. And so about a month or so before the Infinity War came out, Russos let me know that they had to cut the half hour of Thanos. And all I could think of was, oh my God, that's going to make it into the Justice League movie. And so I suddenly had Bob Kane on my mind all the time. Because back in the 60s, they did this really bad Batman. Well, it was, you know, at the time it was the best Batman that had been out there because it was the only Batman. It was very campy. It was the antithesis of what Bob had created. But he was getting a piece of it with all the Batman stuff. He had made a pretty good deal that others hadn't. And so I imagined him having to go on interviews and saying, I loved it. And I thought, I'm going to be in the same damn position.
Oh,
I'm going to have to go to the interviews and go, oh, yeah, I love it. It's great. That's terrific. And then the heart going, oh, piece of shit. So I'm in line for the premiere and going in there and practicing. I love it. I love it. I love it. 3 minutes in the movie, even before the Hulk shows up, I'm going, hey, I'm not going to have any trouble with this at all. This is going to be one that I'm going to easily say, I love it and mean it. And it has held true. You know, I have been the luckiest cartoonist out there. 3-4 times up at bat if you include the Infinity Gauntlet, and they've hit it out of the park with my characters every time. You know, Drax is probably the most diverse from them, but I just love what Batista and Gunn did with him. He's just this wacky, lovable character, and I mean, I just, you know, I feel very lucky, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with Shang-Chi. I'm sure it'll be terrific.
If Dave Bautista has also kind of said that he kind of feels like Drax got a short end of the stick from Marvel Studios as well. What kind of stuff would you like to see if we get one more, maybe just a few more movies out of him?
Well, I don't know. I know at one point Bautista was lobbying for a Drax movie, which I would have loved to have seen. It didn't work out that way because, you know, big movies had their own scheduling and routine, and that whole thing with Gunn and after the second movie popped up, and so it complicated everything.
I want to see Moondragon. I want to see Yvette and Camaria.
Yeah, Moondragon would be fun to see. What I'd really like to see is a Pip the Troll streaming TV series. Before they actually bring Warlock in, have a little Pip the Troll.
Why not? Everyone else is getting a series. I think Groot has a special.
I didn't know that. That's fun. That should be fun. Something to look forward to. I'm really looking forward to Loki this week. Their streaming things, they've been phenomenally successful. WandaVision was just this beautiful head trip, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier was this great little adventure story. Both of them top notch and up to the top level of what they've been doing. What anybody can do with those particular genres. There's no fear on Shang-Chi.
Yeah, I saw you went to Avengers Campus.
Yes, that was quite fun. That Spider-Man ride is quite spectacular. It's like walking into a video game, first-person shooter video game.
And don't you just like do it with your hands? Like, don't you just kind of point with your hands?
Yeah, you just have to sort of fling. And I did very poorly, I have to tell you. Of the 4 people in the cart, I had the lowest score.
Well, let's talk about Dreadstar, man, because you're getting the character back, you're getting the gang back, and I want to talk about it.
All right, let's fire away then.
I can only imagine it's not easy to get a comic book going in the first place, let alone bring a comic. Maybe it's a little bit easier when you're bringing it back, a story that people already know. But so that to me is an indication you're putting a lot of work and you really want to make this happen. So tell me why is this character, this story, something that you and your team are working so hard to bring back to life?
Well, I hadn't done them in 20 some odd years, maybe even 30. And I hadn't been drawing because of an injury to my hand. And that sort of had righted itself, which is a story all into itself. And I didn't want to work at the majors for reasons that are pretty crazy over there these days. This was pre-COVID, but even then it was a little bit too odd for me. And it was just the right time. The ominous people through Ron Mars, we had already been doing Dreadstar Omnibus, which was a big help on me working with a stylist to get my hand going. And had met Jamie Jameson, and she was inking convention things for me. She was also instrumental in me getting back to work. She was harassing me for a Dr. Doom sketch, not a Thanos sketch, Dr. Doom, mind you. And I finally sat down after one convention and drew it and found that the hand didn't crap up afterwards, and so which it had been doing. And so when I got to it, 100 pages, I knew I wasn't going to ink it myself, and so I approached her, and she agreed. And it's been an adventure ever since. She's a terrific person to work as a collaborator with, and during the time we were working on Dreadstar Returns, she contracted COVID and nearly died from it. So this book was quite a labor for her, among the other things, just from surviving it long enough to finish the job, especially with this crazy boss who kept saying, I want another page tomorrow so I have something to color.
Wow.
She's sort of glaring at me right now in remembrance.
Well, I'm glad that she's okay now. And that's a hell of a story to bring this Dreadstar Returns back out to the world, man. I saw a quote that you said that we're getting your best. Like, we're getting your best work with Dreadstar, with Vanth this time. What before this would you have looked back before this story and said that was your best? And why do you feel like this? Like, how does it compare? How do you compare the experiences?
Well, you look back at your old works, there's all sorts of stages. Looking back at those early Captain Marvels I did, I'm kind of horrified at what my idea of what anatomy was like. Captain Marvel had more rib cage than any other human being that ever walked the face of the earth. Warlock got a little bit better because I'd taken an anatomy class at the Art Students League in New York after that. I was starting to ink at that point, and that was a mixed bag because I've never been crazy about my own inks. A lot of pencilers aren't. I know Jack Kirby, who inked very few of his own things, hated everything he did. This spell along through Dreadstar was another stage, a couple of stages actually. The first books were painted. They weren't pen and ink. They were fully rendered paintings that I worked with a lot of photo reference on. Later on, going back to the pen and ink, when the Dreadstar series started, they were some of the best inking stuff I did. Later on, there was a job called Pawns that ended up in the back of Dreadstar, which I did some really fine line pen work. That's another stage. And after that, I think there was a lull. You know, I just didn't have the fire in me. And coming back to Thanos, the pencils improved a bit again. But I really wasn't fired until after I lost the hand. And when I came back, I wanted it to be the best I could, and you got more out of me then than you ever did in any of the previous jobs. And this is the first time I've ever done an analysis of that. But that's basically the way it went.
I actually just pulled up the Kickstarter because I wanted to see how much money you guys raised. $135,000. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a record there for a while until Keanu Reeves came along and made it impossible for anyone who's not been in a movie to raise that much money. And I had only been in 5 minutes of a movie while he was in several of them. So I use that as my excuse.
Yeah, well, you got to start marketing that Endgame cameo out there. You know what I mean?
Yes, no, cameos don't quite have the star power that a starring role has.
I hear you. I'd love to hear from you because this is a comic that I feel like you kind of just touched on it a bit with, how some of the bigger publishers, things might be a little weird, I guess is the good word for it. You just get more freedom, I feel like, when you're doing this more independently with Epic Comics and stuff. So I love to hear, do you think you would have gotten to do like the world building and some of the character choices? And I'm actually, one of the things we're going to talk about is the Trump art that you just made, or the parody of Trump that you just kind of read. You think you would have got to do that kind of stuff at like a Marvel or a DC?
Well, definitely not at Marvel with the Trump thing, because at one point in my second to last Thanos story, I had a line in it there about creating your own reality. And one of the lawyers up at Marvel wanted that line grabbed because they thought it was a jab at Trump, where it had nothing to do with Trump in my story or in my head. And I only went after Trump after he played Thanos in one of his political ads with my character. So, and then after the way his administration handled the COVID catastrophe, I think he's responsible for thousands of deaths. And so I figure he was open game, and he deserves a lot worse than what I gave him.
Hard to argue with that. Hard. Not going to hear an argument from
you. At Marvel, when I was doing Captain Marvel and Warlock, yes, I did build do a lot of world building there, and had a lot of freedom because Roy Thomas, who was the editor, the only editor, just didn't have time to supervise, and he had the sense that a good editor back then did, if it ain't broken, don't mess with it. Archie Goodwin was another great editor along those lines with Dreadstar. Keep your hands off unless there's a problem. And they were very good about that. I think in my time with Archie, he only made one suggestion, which was a write-on suggestion on a cover. And, the good ones know what they're doing, and you listen to them when they do speak.
So I love how you have built, like, within its own world, Dreadstar does have its own, it's a fully established mythology, and there are just different worlds that you can visit and everything, and so many characters and sprawling dynamics and everything. How much of it is still in your head? How much of it are you yet to deliver in the expansion of that world? Do you think you'll get to all of it?
I have 5 graphic novels planned. Dreadstar Return was the first of them. Dreadstar versus the Inevitable is the next one. There's another one that is getting solidly in my head, and then there's 2 more after that are results of the 2 following stories. And I know that I'll have to do them, though there's not even a framework for them at this point. So it's always floating around there. And, if I stay in good health, I should be able to get these and more out of the way. I have no intention of going off and doing much of anything else. There is one series, limited series that I have planned with Rag Morales and Jamie. She's co-writing on this one with me and helping me plan, but these are the things I can't talk about just yet.
That's fair. I won't push that. So listen, this is the question. This is the question I'm sure that has probably come up before, but if Dreadstar does become an adaptation in TV or film, I know you said this is something that has to be a TV show because it is a world that is so rich to tell it all. You need
a movie. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I listen. I'm here for. But have you ever thought about who could play Vanth?
Who are you thinking about?
Charlie Hunnam.
Charlie Hunnam. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I've
also been, and I haven't even told Jamie about this one, is I've been looking at Ross Marquand. Is that it?
Oh, Ross Marquand.
Yes, Marquand. Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. He's a great guy.
Yeah, and watching him, I did Endgame again the other night while I was working, and I've met him a couple times too, and he does grow a good beard like you. And, I think that he's a possibility.
He's so talented.
Yeah, I think he's got the versatility to pull something off like that. But, probably when the time comes, it'll be completely out of my hands.
Well, listen, Mr. Starlin, it is an absolute pleasure to get to talk with you. And I'm looking forward to supporting Dreadstar and picking up more stories there and reading what you have coming. So
unfortunately, right now, the only place you can get it is through the website at Amadeus Press because we haven't got the distribution deal to the comic book shops, but that's coming. But in the meantime, pretend it's like an Amazon order and just go on and order yourself up a copy. And it's a great little book.
It is interesting to see how many people are pivoting to online ordering for comic books as well. Like people are just having it not like instead of I prefer going to the store. I'm old school, I guess. I just like physical media. A lot of people like reading it digitally now, but it is interesting that wave is coming of ordering online.
Yeah, and the hard copy is really nice. I mean, I can see where the digital platform has its ways because it's a preview. If you like it, hey, go off and get the hard copy that you can put on your book copy. And with Dreadstar, the people up at Amos did this beautiful production job. Phil Smith, who is their tech guy and sort of graphic artist up there, just did a beautiful job putting the book together. The printing is pristine. I mean, it's the best production I've had of my work ever. It beats out anything that Marvel or DC have done as far as quality of a product. Nice.
Well, I'm definitely going to get one of those in my hands soon. So listen, honestly, it's such a pleasure to talk with you. I'm a huge fan of your work. So I'm glad to hear you're doing well. I'm glad to hear Jamie recovered and is doing well. And I look forward to supporting you going forward, man.